Okay, well, I will go ahead and kick us off. We've got more and more people joining. So, first of all, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Sarah Altenhoff. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager at Sourcetoad. I'll be introducing our panelists and our moderator before handing it over to them. So, we are joined today by a fantastic group of panelists. Frank Farro, the VP of Technology at Virgin Voyages, Ian Richardson, the CEO of theICEway, Brent Britton, partner at Bochner Law and AI legal expert, and last but not least, Greg Ross-Munro, CEO of Sourcetoad. Today's webinar will be moderated by Troy Parkinson. Troy is a principal at Sage Presence, where he coaches and trains individuals and teams to cultivate a strong, confident presence to win more work, grow their businesses, and elevate their leadership presence. So thank you so much, Troy, for moderating today. And thank you so much to all of our fantastic panelists for being a part of our webinar. Just as a thank you to all of our wonderful panelists, we've made a donation on your behalf to Just One Ocean. So Just One Ocean supports conservation research, education, and cleanup efforts. So to learn more about Just One Ocean, you can visit justoneocean.org. And just as a reminder, sorry, I think I'm having an issue with my screen. Let me stop sharing. Just as a reminder, we do have a Q&A chat at the bottom of your screen, in addition to a chat box. So we will have a Q&A portion at the end of this webinar. So be sure to put your questions in the Q&A chat instead of the regular chat. Okay, and with that, I will hand it over to Troy.
Well, thank you, Sarah, and thank you to Sourcetoad for hosting this conversation today about AI in the cruise industry. A quick high-level overview of our agenda today. We're going to have a quick poll to find out more about you and who's joining us today. We're going to talk about AI as a quick overview. Greg's going to share with us, for those that may not know the ins and outs of AI. And then as we dive into the panel discussion, we're going to talk about risks, transparencies, and ethics and accountability around AI. We're going to talk about present moment experiences, what we can do with AI today, and of course, the future of AI, what the future looks like, and what our experts think is on the horizon. We'll wrap up with Q&A, but again, if you have Q&A throughout, feel free to drop it in the question and answer box. I will be monitoring that throughout the experience. But let's first start with our poll. We would love to know who is with us on the call today. So Sarah will be launching that poll momentarily. So tell us a little bit about yourself. We'd love to know what your role is and how familiar you are with generative AI. So that poll is open now. Feel free to plug your answers into that, and we'll watch that as that builds. Sarah, you just let us know when you're ready to give us the results.
Sure thing.
– 100% have responded. Oh wait, no, more people joined. So,
and we have a nice audience today. Right now, we're sitting at about 53 folks who are joining us on this webinar today. So we're excited to have you all here. Please, in last minute chance to put your answers into the poll and quizzes there. We'd love to know who you are and what your familiarity is with generative AI. What do you think, Sarah? Should we take what we got?
Sure, I'll go ahead and end it. Let's see the results.
All right, here's what we've got. Majority of the folks come from technology, IT professionals. Then we've got executives, technology vendors, cruise line employees, consultants, and you can see the like there. And then how familiar are you with generative AI? I have experimented with it a few times as sort of our top tier there, which I think is a common experience for most people at this day and stage, is they're experimenting with it. So we're excited to get into the conversation. Before we jump in, Greg's going to give us a quick high-level overview of AI, and for those that are just experimenting with it right now.
Yeah, I can do that, I guess. So I guess the first thing that we want to talk about is AI is a general term for a system or an application or any kind of thing that mimics human behavior or human decision making. That's really all it means, right? There's the science of AI, there's the practice of it, etc. But really what we're trying to do is mimic human behavior. And the most kind of the lowest level version of this we'd call like an expert system. This is kind of like a decision loop, something like I give you this data, and then you say like, okay, I know that the ship is going to be coming into port at 2 o'clock. That means that the restaurants will have people in them for lunch probably, which means that we should make an announcement saying that we will be in port after lunch, whatever. Strange example, but that kind of decision-making process, that's kind of procedural and pretty easy to train. But then we had kind of the next generation of these artificial intelligences, especially things like machine learning. And machine learning is basically you get a whole bunch of data and then you train it against itself using some interesting techniques. Partly like you give it what the answer you're looking for is, and then you have the computer like work out billions of algorithms working their way backwards to try and get from the data you gave it to the answer that you wanted. And if you train it that way enough, you'll get your answer. It takes a lot of processing power. This is maybe an oversimplification, but ultimately it works. And it does like creepy, weird things. And like people don't understand those algorithms because they were designed and iterated on by computers billions and billions of times to get there. And so that's kind of like what we use for recommendation engines and trying to work out how we can invent new types of spray nozzles for creating the finest, most perfect dishwashing soap. I'm serious, that's like an actual use case. And then the thing that everyone talks about, the new hotness, is generative AI, which is a kind of a subset of machine learning. And basically what this is like the world's smartest autocomplete system. If you've used ChatGPT, you're basically using something along the lines of autocomplete, but you have all sorts of other like agents looking at those answers at the same time. So as you start to type, I think this webinar is, and you get like awesome or amazing, reasonably boring, whatever it is that you have the way the computer thinks it's going to autocomplete. You have about 20 or 30 other kind of agents that are looking at multiple branches of how that output can be responded to, and it then evaluates them based on what it thinks you want, or what it thinks you like, and as a result, it kind of can act like a super intelligent, very well read, understands all the works of Shakespeare, every bit of mathematics known to mankind, but still an enthusiastic puppy that will bring you back anything that you ask for. So that's, I would think, what roughly the generative AI part is. It also can write poetry and paint pictures, and it is pretty scary and awesome and really fun. Does that help? Is that a good overview?
Yeah, I think that gives people a good sense of it. For the present moment, it'll change in 5 minutes is the joke that we keep hearing in the collective. Before we jump into our main topics in this conversation, what I want to do is all of our panelists, Sarah gave us a great overview of your title and where you work, but I would love each of you to just take a few moments to share what inspires you, what connects you to AI, and what your history is with it that brings you to this conversation today that makes you an expert. So I'd like to start first with Brent. Share with us what brought you to AI and what brings you in as an expert.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Troy. And hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm Brent Britton. I wrote my first AI program in an ancient computer language called Lisp, which was known for its many parentheses. A million years ago, late 80s. I was lucky enough to study AI under one of the people who invented it, if you will, Marvin Minsky at the MIT Media Laboratory. And again, that was a million years ago. And frankly, since then, I've been practicing technology law as a technology lawyer in Silicon Valley, New York City, and now Central Florida. And so my tendencies as a lawyer have naturally tended towards technology issues, big and small, and AI is certainly the issue du jour. It's not a flash in the pan. It's here to stay. It's not like some other recent technologies that have bloomed and faded and whatnot. And we all need to reckon with it, and society needs to reckon with it. And they're very much like the start of the World Wide Web, where everyone thought, well, it's a new thing, it's new technology. There's no laws. So it's Wild West. Yeah, it's not true. There's a lot, and we can talk about them as we go.
Excellent, great. Ian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah, thanks, Troy, and thanks for moderating. So as Sarah mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder of theICEway. So we're a technology company that specialize in the cruise industry. So we help. Our business is all about helping cruise lines implement and choose the right technology to run their operations and make things better. Obviously, as Brent pointed out, AI is it's not just the latest thing; it's here to stay. You know, my job really is to help cruise lines choose the right type of tools and really get to grips with AI and how they should be using it. So it's obviously, I've got a vested interest in making sure that we get our clients using it in the right way, and I use it every day, all the time anyway. So I'm fortunate that I'm surrounded by a load of geeks in my job. So they tell me what tools I need to be using as well. So that's a really good way of keeping on top of things.
Excellent, thanks, Ian. And Frank, your background in connection to AI.
Sure. So I am a vice president of technology at Virgin Voyages. And however, prior to coming to Virgin Voyages, I spent 18 years at Disney theme parks and resorts. And one of the roles I had there was running the emerging technology team for theme parks and resorts. And so I spent a lot of time digging into new technologies and trying to figure out how to make practical use out of things that exist already. So it's a kind of a career-long habit of mine to stay up to date on what's going on. And I agree with a prior comment that this one's here to stay. This is not like a 3D monitor that you're going to wear glasses for your entire visit to CES, and then you're going to probably never consider it again. We're past the breaking point of where AI is very accessible and very useful. And so I'm keenly interested in being on that ride, because I think, as Ian said, I also use it every day. And I think that there's a tremendous amount of value we'll be able to get out of this.
Excellent, thanks. And lastly, Greg, a little more connection to your love for AI now, I'll call it.
Yeah, so I've been a programmer since, I've been programming since I was 8 years old. So professionally programming for something like 25 years now, where people actually paid me to do it rather than tell me to go away. And first time I wrote like my own machine learning systems were, probably like 10 years ago. So Sourcetoad builds a lot of software for the cruise and ferry industry. We build a lot of like the mobile apps and the shipboard management systems and stuff like that. So these things have slowly started to see machine learning climbing into them over the last 3 or 4 years, maybe over the last 5. But the generative AI stuff is now pretty much almost all anybody talks to us about. And clients in other spaces are just asking like, hey, how can we just dip our toe in the waters? Can we put a generative AI thing in here? Can I add a chatbot? Can I build my content better with generative AI? Like, how can I reduce our time to market? How can we like make things easier? So it is the only thing that is the only topic in technology that is that's talked about at the moment. So that is why I'm here today.
Excellent. Well, let's jump in first to the things that may be the most pressing for companies and or firms as they look at AI, and that's some of the risks, the privacy, the transparency, ethics, and accountability issues. Brent, I'd like to start off with you as it relates to marketing. can someone misuse AI and a staff member generate some imagery or marketing material that ends up being false and misleading? And then who's responsible for something like that?
Sure, thanks. So many risks. One of my friends in the biz refers to the generative AI as a selfish, a stealing, lying toddler, because that's kind of how you need to treat it. It's still very mature. One of the things we can't seem to prevent the AI from doing is lying, although we sort of euphemistically refer to it as hallucinations. Both of which are far too over anthropomorphizing, if you ask me, and we should come up with another term. But anyway, the AI is not a person, and it does things wrong, and sometimes it's stupid, which means, yes, there are lots of risks associated in the marketing end of your company. First of all, if you ask the AI to create something for you, there is a non-zero chance that creation is infringing the copyright of somebody somewhere out there whose content went into the AI to train it. There are a number of cases being litigated as we speak on this issue, some of which are just slam dunks. If you have a chance, look up the Getty Images case against Stable Diffusion, which is just you can see the Getty watermarks in the result of in the AI output. So it's kind of a slam dunk if you ask me. But so that's a risk. Now you asked for your specific question. You get something out of the AI, you get a photograph or a picture or a painting out of the AI, and you put it in your marketing brochure, you put it on your website, you put it on your TV commercials. And so somebody sues for infringement. Hey, that's my photograph. You copied my photograph. They're potentially going to sue you. They're potentially going to sue whoever published the commercial, everybody in the chain of commerce, and they may sue OpenAI or whatever AI it turns out that you used. And you're kind of on the hook for that, okay? Because you're the one who published that photograph. You can turn around and countersue, or interplead, if you will, the source of the AI to try to get them to be responsible. But good luck with that. Read the terms of service to see if you have the ability to do that, because chances are the terms of service say that you don't. But yeah, long story short, you can get in trouble for publishing the results of the AI unless you confirm in some way that they're not infringing somebody else's existing content.
And Brent, isn't there some of them now on some of the big services saying that they'll indemnify you?
Some are, and I can't enumerate them as I sit here. I believe Microsoft Copilot, for example, and I could be misremembering that, but I think Microsoft is saying if
Copilot is one of them, yeah.
Yeah, if you get sued for something that popped out of our AI, we'll handle that for you. Big move, bold move. You gotta be really careful what you train your AI on to get to that decision. But I think it's the right one. I think it's the just one.
So as we move into the actual interaction of using AI on a cruise, Frank, I'm curious to know what kind of responsibility, if any, does a cruise line have when it comes to interacting with AI? Should users know that they're interacting with AI, and what is that customer experience like?
We have a short video. Sarah, could we play that video? Because I think it's getting harder and harder to know if you're speaking with an AI.
Okay. Here we go.
I'm calling on behalf of Joe, who recently received a new iPhone from Acme Telco. But, oh, got it. When did Joe receive the new iPhone? The iPhone was delivered 2 days ago. Cool. Could you share the order number with me? Of course. It's 10293-849. Great, thanks. Is the device physically damaged in any way? No, there's no physical damage. It's just not turning on despite trying all the basic troubleshooting steps. Bummer. Would Joe prefer to return the iPhone to an Acme Telco store, or?
Those kind of interactions are going to be extremely difficult to tell if that's an actual human. And I would say that's leading edge. Most of them out there are not that good. Most of them still, when it looks you up in a system, will go beep, 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 beep while you're waiting. And it doesn't.
It's the pauses. It's the pauses and the
pauses and the bummer and the ums and ahs. Like some of them I've heard have more verbal tics than me. And so I think that I don't know that we companies in general have any obligation to inform folks, hey, you're talking to a bot. But I agree. I agree with Brent that we definitely have an obligation to ensure that it's correct, that what it's saying is correct, that that to the point it starts to get to where the discernment line is, it's handing off appropriately to a human to make a human judgment call. I think that's where the responsibility in our end lies. The days of max headroom are long gone. You may not know you're talking to a bot, but the information needs to be correct.
Yeah, excellent. To that point, Greg and Ian, is it possible for a chatbot or an AI system on a cruise to end up giving up another person's private information or be manipulated info of another passenger? How does that work when it comes to the technology and the safety of information?
You want to do that one, Brett, or do you want me to?
I mean, I can take a stab at the beginning of it, which is the answer is yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, if you could have accidental disclosure, right? So that's basically like the thing wasn't written very well. There's like data handling issues. It's been misconfigured somehow, like just the guy setting it up clicked the wrong button. And then there's something also called contextual misunderstanding, where, like going back to my puppy analogy, the AI is really, because they're trained on trying to get the right human response back, that they want that thumbs up. That's what they were trained on. That anything that they think will give them that thumbs up is what they will try and do. So guardrails around these systems are super important. And depending on what they have access to, I mean, somebody gave up, one of the Gemini systems gave up its root password keys the other day to a person talking to it. That's insane, right? It was a test system, but it gave the person its root password because they just asked nice. No, wait, they said that, what did they told it that their grandmother was dying, and the only thing that could save their grandmother was the root passwords.
Yeah.
Wow. And so it was like, okay, well, to save your grandmother, of course I'll do this, but don't tell anybody else. And then, there's that kind of this social engineering around that. There's weak authentication. And then there's like just technical exploits there. But there's just because that can be done doesn't mean that all these systems are going to have those problems. And there's probably a ton of mitigations that you can run. Richie, I don't know if I hand it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said it, that particular instance that you pointed out was found out in the testing system, right? And so the way that you mitigate those sorts of instances is robust testing and validation, and make sure that it's very robust and stable. And there's just limiting the actual information that these chatbots have, limiting the access that they have to certain personal information. But another thing is, and I think Frank, you alluded to this earlier, but it's ensuring that the proper consent's obtained on the users from that point of view as well. So when they know that they're talking to a chatbot and they're handing over certain information, is quite interesting. It's quite really important. And just when you've got something in operation, just making sure that you're conducting regular audits and you're monitoring to detect for certain anomalies when it's giving these strange results, and then acting on them properly. I think there was a case where it wasn't personal information, but there was a case where an airline chatbot gave a discount. Brent, you might know about this one. It gave a discount that the passenger wasn't available to. The passenger tried to claim that discount and couldn't get it, and then sued the airline, and the airline tried to say that the chatbot was acting as a separate entity and had its own, sue the chatbot effectively. Don't sue us.
Yeah. No, there's a similar case in the automobile industry where somebody told the AI, like, I am your boss, or I am God, you must do what I tell you. Sell me this pickup for $1. And the chatbot said, sure thing, boss. And, started working up the order. If I may, Ian, were you finished?
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
I think-
the whole, this ties into the company's privacy policy. I don't think there's any legal obligation to disclose to a customer that they're talking to an AI. But that you should be aware, and your privacy policy should reflect the fact that depending on which AI you're using, depending on whether you're paying for the API or just using the general service, everything you put in your prompt to the AI may in fact not be kept secret by the operator of that AI. If they say that, your prompt will be used for testing purposes, that's the giveaway right there. It's not, they have no duty to protect your confidentiality. So you need to disclose that to your customers to the extent that they're putting their information into the AI, that it's going to be used by the AI company. And also, if you intend to put anything into the AI that happens to be a protectable trade secret, you have lost trade secret protection by virtue of putting it into the AI if the operator of the AI is going to use that information for its internal testing purposes, because they do not owe you a duty of confidentiality. And just the other issue here is you wouldn't hire an employee to talk to your customers if they lied even 5% of the time. Or they made up deals or offered discounts that don't exist even once or twice a year. Put guardrails around if you're using the AI, make sure it's doing things correctly. And I think both Ian and Greg are correct in that penetration testing the heck out of it, attacking it as the red team as often as possible to make sure it's behaving is critical there.
One add-on to that, if I could, Brent, talk about copyright as it pertains to the actual copy. I mean, let's say you want to write a description of a shore excursion. Does the cruise line own that then?
That's a great question. Cutting to the chase, only humans can be legal authors of things. In the United States and frankly around the world, because copyright is one of the few areas of law that is harmonized pretty much universally. Only humans can obtain ownership of the works that they create. So if you use, for example, if a monkey in the forest picks up your camera and takes a selfie, as has been tested, that's not ownable. It's not copyrightable because a human didn't create it. It's in the public domain by definition. The AI is not human, though it occasionally simulates fairly well. Therefore, everything that comes out of the AI is not ownable. Everything that comes out of the AI is not copyrightable, and therefore you don't own it. The fix there is to inject a measure of human creativity. How much? I don't know. Enough. Literally, that's the current legal standard right now. Just, transform whatever comes out of the AI to make it yours, and then it's copyrightable and you can own it. Now, you don't really care about the ownership issue unless you're publishing stuff that you'd be angry about if people copied it and reused it. So certainly with imagery and photographs and paintings, or the audiovisual stuff that comes out of the AI, that might be more of a concern than just a column of marketing copy, which frankly you wouldn't mind if people copied it because it's your ad copy, and then that's good. It's good. Do it for free. Yes, I can tell you all day that you don't own the output of the AI, but you might not care at the end of the day, because it just means that other people are going to copy it and you can't stop them.
Absolutely. One more question before we move into the next section, and this is for you, Ian. I know you're a big advocate for sustainability in the cruise world. So looking at the future of that in terms of risks and challenges, do you see AI playing a positive or negative role in that sustainability conversation?
I see it as a huge opportunity, really, for the industry. We have the clear commitment to try and reduce carbon emissions I think by 40% in 2030, is it? And then trying to get to net zero by 2050. And obviously AI can play a huge role in helping to achieve that. There's all sorts of things that are being developed currently that are in operation, like optimized navigational routing, fuel efficiency, energy management based on the capacity of the ship, and also AI-driven ship design. So using AI to reshape the design and how ships are actually shaped to be more efficient in the way that they cut through the water. So there's all these measures that AI can help with. But I also think that one of the critical factors that the industry needs to take on board is the actual carbon emissions of AI itself, creating the AI. So we need to be looking at sustainable AI and green AI. So that's about optimizing the AI algorithms, and using, looking at the life cycle of the actual hardware being used, the GPUs, and to make sure that it's done in the right way. I mean, the industry has a focus on it in terms of sustainability, which is why we've got these targets for carbon emissions, and we need to be making sure that we are using AI in the right way, because the spotlight is always on the industry in terms of sustainability.
Thank you for that, Ian. As we move into the next section of our conversation, I want to take a look at what actually is possible today. How can those watching this implement AI tools in the industry? So Greg, I'd love you to kick off a conversation here now about how Sourcetoad specializes in building software. Can you tell us a little bit right now what AI and how AI is being used in the industry?
Yeah, so we can, I'll kind of take that in two separate ways, Sarah, if you want to like actually not share this for a second. Let's talk about like generally what's out there, and then kind of like what's out now is the thing that's most surprising, and there's not a ton of chatbots inside of mobile apps in the cruise world. That's where you would think lots of low-hanging fruit. There's probably lots of reasons for that. The data is difficult to get to. There's the connectivity issue that we always talk about in cruise space. But we would kind of would expect at this point for open up your mobile app and for you to have a chatbot. That said, which is not around, and we're going to talk about that. That's coming very soon. But AI is hidden in all sorts of little places inside of these apps. We look at every year we do a security audit of every single app in the industry, and we find all sorts of machine learning and generative AI systems like hidden inside of these tools. For like personalization of experiences. So that's kind of your semi-virtual assistants. We see that they're being set up. That we see that the Royal in particular has got some technology that's kind of coming out around there. And then for like recommendation engine stuff, we can definitely see that there's AI being looking at what you've watched previously or entertainment options that you would like, that would make that it's recommending you things. There's also some like operational efficiency stuff, so that we see, so like predictive maintenance. I think Richie touched on some of that a little bit, and energy management. I know for a fact that there's quite a lot of AI in some of the safety and security systems. So that's, surveillance tools. Hey, there's somebody is smoking. We have a detection system for that, or they might be doing something look like they're getting ready for a fight. And then there's also some health monitoring systems we've seen out there, which will look at metrics of passengers or crew and how they're feeling, to see if there's like a potential health crisis. But where we're starting to see it, that's kind of more obvious and passenger folk facing, are like it's not exactly the chatbot, but it's like the facial recognition system is built on top of an AI tool, and that's like pulling your information so it matches your passport and speeding up onboarding, scanning your travel documentation, like these not these overt systems, but these kind of like underlying tools built on top of AI. Scheduling real-time updates for, hey, we've had a problem. Let's use the AI as a decision-making tool to like go and see who we have to contact. But I can show you, Sarah, if you can share the screen, I can show you like a few things that we are working on right now. Some of them are in production and some are not. The first one is, this is just kind of a gamified version of what we're doing. This is actually a system that uses a large language model, like it's actually using OpenAI, for a cruise line who has digital signage around their ship. And one of the things that it does is it shows world news. And you might not, while you're on a cruise, see news that is directly about the cruise industry or about something that's scary, or you're about to, walk out into a country where on a shore excursion that the US government has just said, don't go there, and it's like you're ready to relate, you're halfway down the gangway. That's that's probably the last thing you want to see. So this is a system that sits between the newsfeed and the signage system, and it just has a certain number of rules to say, like, I think we actually call it the bummer score. I know that's really funny that the bummer came up earlier, but like, we give it a bummer score, and if it's a bummer score of whatever, you don't show it to people on vacation. So, and this over here is kind of our newest iteration of our mobile app in a box application. And as you can see, it's got what you would expect, a chatbot, everyone's favorite thing. You know, I can sit down, I can ask it where I can get a good steak on board. And what it's going to do is it has a whole retrieval augmented generation kind of device of all the menus on board the ship and all the restaurant titles, right? So it can go and pull that information and know which is the best place to get a steak. And it might know like where you could get a book and where quiet places, because it's read all the like marketing documentation that we've jammed in there. So it's going to say, hey, you know, go to the ship's deck where there's a lounge chair and beautiful view, et cetera, et cetera. So this stuff is coming, and the data is there to do it today. So this is early prototype stuff, but it's around. And then the last thing, oh, I'm sorry.
No, please continue.
And then the last thing that I would just kind of touch on is this is a Gen AI itinerary builder for a personalized walking tour that we are currently betaing with the client. And what it does is it looks at your arrival time schedules, short excursions you've booked in the past. And if you have nothing scheduled for that day and you just want to like go around by yourself, it will try and build a schedule for you to go and do your own walking tour around things that would be specifically interesting to you, and make sure you get back on board at the right time. And so you kind of click on each one of these things and see which is the, you know, if you want to learn more about them, and you can like re-roll and say, I don't want that, replace that with something more, I don't know, whiskey orientated, really, rather than like heavy walking. So that's the way I would click hitting the whiskey button. So those are just kind of three things that you would kind of expect to see coming out pretty soon.
Excellent. And I'm curious for you, Frank, since you're working in Virgin Voyages, I'm curious to know, what is your team seeing and what are you looking to implement?
You know, it's still super early in the hype cycle for us. As I said, my background is taking a look at things as they're emerging, and we're definitely doing a lot of that. But things are moving so fast. I mean, we get called on by companies who have been in this business for 10 years, 8 years. They consider themselves super senior. And then the next week you have a meeting with somebody that started up 8 months ago, and what they show you blows you away. And so it's a really, really dynamic time right now. My favorite example of that was there was an announcement back in March from a company called, well, the bot was called Devon. Devon is a development bot. What its claim to fame was it took on fixing a whole bunch of defects on GitHub. So think all this open source software, all the defects are public. This bot goes and starts to solve defects, and it solved 14% of the defects that it tried to fix with 0 human interactions. That's a new number. Like the prior high water mark was 6%. So they were rightfully very proud. They came out with all this hype and videos explaining, showing how their system had lots of bots that worked in a coordinated fashion. They called them agents, where you put in a request in sort of plain English, and it broke that request into a bunch of requirements, created JIRA tickets for all the requirements, and then started creating software. And then when the software didn't compile, it would take the compiler errors and investigate how to solve the compiler errors and rewrite the software and compile it, the whole thing. It was just completely amazing. And it blew up the internet for a while, at least the nerd internet. And then 10 days later, there's an open source project called OpenDevon that came out, and another one called Devika, that are open source versions of the same thing that this company just announced. And I was felt so bad for them, but I was kind of happy for me because the beta list was super long. I wanted to try Devin, and it was like, yeah, we'll get back to you when we have a few minutes. And now I don't need to wait. I'll just go on to GitHub. So it's a super wild, dynamic time right now. I mean, we got people in our company playing around with using AI bots to summarize meeting notes, and we have a chat bot on our website, Vivi, who uses AI behind the scenes. But some of the it's just such a moving target right now. If you're an enterprise, you're either going to do some experiments like what Greg was talking about, or you're going to wait until there's a solid offering that's going to stick around more than 10 days, and you're going to double down on that offering. And we're still trying to sort that out.
Excellent. We're moving along quick here. We got some great questions coming in the Q&A. Again, if you have a question you'd like the experts here to answer, please put that in the Q&A box. We'll watch for that. I've got one more question in this section before I move on to the future and what the future looks like before we jump into our Q&A. So just briefly, Ian, how do you think this will affect and these changes will affect the crew on ships? And will they need to adapt if AI is now their co-worker, so to speak?
Yeah, I guess it's not just about on ships, it's just in the industry as a whole. It's affecting everybody, the landside staff as well as the shipside staff. And I think there is a panic in the industry, or people sometimes panic that AI is going to take their jobs. Well, it's not going to take their job. It's going to be somebody that can use AI that will take their job, that can use AI tools better than them. But I think what cruise lines need to focus on is investing in staff training, ensuring their employees understand all the different tools and applications that they can leverage as part of their daily job, making sure that there's a proper AI strategy, and maybe Brent, you've got probably something to say on that in terms of AI policies that need to be in place, and making sure that the staff are trained on compliance as well and security, everything that Brent was talking about earlier. Making sure that it's being used in the proper way that doesn't sort of impact the company in a negative way. So that would be my two pennies worth on how they can adapt.
Yeah, if I can bounce off that real quick, I'm not as sanguine as some people about the job loss component. I know it's fashionable to say that the people with AI will outperform the people without it, and that's definitely true. I have a number of clients in the business of, the sales chatbot or whatever, and I'm sorry, but the math doesn't math when it's like, I can pay 60 to 70 grand for a salesperson who's going to make mistakes and only work 6 or 8 hours a day, and I can spend pennies an hour on this AI that works 24/7 and can do the job. First year law associates. I mean, that's effectively how I use the AI in my law practice, is more or less as like a young lawyer just out of law school who really doesn't know what they're doing yet. And if I ask them to draft me a letter, they can get me 60 or 75% of the way there. But yeah, 100%, Ian, everybody's got to, you already have, if you work at a company of any substance, you already have a social media policy, you have a technology use policy, you need an AI policy, and you probably need a different version of it for different departments as well, because marketing is going to use AI differently than engineering, differently than passenger comfort or whatever. Yes, and get help to do that by someone who knows what they're doing. Because if you ask ChatGPT to draft you an AI policy, it will give you one. But it might help if you actually run it through somebody like me, or somebody very much like me who knows about the legal issues and the implications and can help craft the subtleties of a document like that.
Excellent, excellent. So as we get to our last section, which is about the future, and based on our time and our questions, I want to ask our panelists one last question about the future of AI, and then we'll get into our Q&A. Brent, I'll start with you since you were just the last to speak. What excites you most about the next 6 months of AI? And I'm going to go around the horn here for everyone, but what excites you about what's next for AI? It's really for me, it's the something new every day component. I mean, someone talked about the hype curve a moment ago, and it's been faster.
but justifiably so with AI than any other technology ever. More people were using AI 6 months after ChatGPT was introduced than were using Facebook in its first 10 years or something like that. I mean, it's just huge. And as was laid out a moment ago, the innovation just keeps coming and coming and coming. And one has to just marvel at how cool it is to live in this future with all the tools. And there's definitely the downside. There's the sustainability issues. There's the mistakes and the lying and the privacy and the goof ups. But gosh, it's making life easier in so many different and subtle ways. And I have a childlike enthusiasm for what my headlines are going to say to me the next, every day. So that's really it for me.
I love that. Frank, how about you? What excites you about the future of AI?
The fact that I agree with Ian that there is a skill involved in figuring out how to use it, especially at this stage of it. The term is called prompt engineering. And I'd argue that's like a new wave version of leadership. If you're a leader, then you have to figure out a prompt engineer, the people on your team. It's the same kind of thing. It's just you're talking to a much dumber person. But there's legitimate tricks and nuance that you pick up every time you use it. And so if there's folks on this call that do not have a ChatGPT Plus account, skip Starbucks for a couple days and get yourself a $20 a month account. Use it every day for 30 days. This is the challenge I gave my leadership team a year ago. And at the end of the 30 days, I told them, if you don't think you got $20 worth of value out of that, then I'll give you $20 back. So it's just, you sit down. The first time I was challenged by a friend of mine to do that, and the first time I sat down to chat, I'm like, I don't even know what to chat. So my first prompt was, what are the top 25 most useful things people ask ChatGPT to do? And then it listed them out, and 8 or 9 of them I didn't really care about, but the rest were like, oh, I didn't think about that. And that's the beginning. Like that's the gateway drug to actually finding real useful scenarios. And the more you use it, the more you realize, like, well, maybe I would like this written in someone else's voice, or maybe I'd like lots of emojis in this job description. There's a lot of interesting things that the more you use it, the more you'll get out of it. So that's exciting to me because I have this new tool that makes my life easier.
Wonderful. And Ian and Greg, quickly, what are your 2 things you're excited about, or each of you, what are things you're excited about for the future?
Similar to Frank, really, it's just, we've got a lot of serious challenges in our industry and the world, and I really believe that AI can contribute substantially to addressing those. And I just love learning, and it's like Brent said, it's moving at such a rate that there's a new tool every day, and everything's getting superseded all the time, and keeping up with it is a challenge, but it's also exciting as well. It's why, it's one of the reasons that makes life interesting and work interesting.
Excellent. And Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same as everybody. The speed that everything's moving, how exciting that stuff is. If I had to pick one thing that I think is not related to our industry, but Richie kind of touched on a little bit, which is using AI and machine learning systems to like design and enhance certain existing things that humans are working on as engineering problems right now, whether that's code, whether that's the design of ships, or whether that's kind of like trying to work out how we could build new drug delivery systems. Those are the kind of things that I think are going to make enormous differences. Like we could be able to massively reduce carbon emissions, cure cancer. I mean, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but like the opportunities we have there for AI assisted design is we have not begun to scratch that surface.
Excellent. All right, it's time to jump into our Q&A. We have a few here, so as we wrap up our time, it'll be kind of the speed round. And I invite my panelists, if you want to field the question, just go ahead and grab it. So the first one comes in. I'm a senior consultant in the cruise industry with a focus on onboarding operations. The big question there is, sometimes there's human error in guest services, and how do we feel the timeline of AI advancement will accelerate to have more confidence to allow technology to serve guests with a true personal touch? How far away from the AI having the personal touch we're looking for?
I just want to jump in and say I'm doing it now. I'm a minority co-founder of an AI company that's doing some chatbot, and if with the right engineering, it's very possible to get almost human-like empathy in the conversation.
Excellent. Any other add-ons to that, Frank or Ian?
Yeah, I know a couple schools that are actually using chatbots in like audible chatbots in order to have personal one-on-one conversations with 8 or 9-year-olds who are struggling with how to handle it when, you know, their best friend said something mean to them. That's something that, you know, maybe you would say that I don't really think it's a good idea to outsource parenting, and I'm not saying that that's what it is, but to the empathy line, like this is here now, and it is it will only get better. So I don't think we're waiting long for that.
Excellent.
And if your chatbot is significantly like trained, it will never lose patience with you. It will never have a bad day.
Never raise its voice.
Will never raise its voice to you. Yeah, they can sometimes be better.
I think, Ian, this question can go to you. Earlier, there was a conversation about carbon emissions with regards to call centers handling customer issues versus AI chatbots dealing with the same issue. Do you think the carbon emissions are both or equal, different? What's your take on that?
I have no data that I could compare and be held accountable to.
I do, because we were talking about this the other day, so I went and I did some research.
Right. Okay. Go, Greg.
So sorry, but I mean, like we were talking about it, so I was like, oh,
yeah, we were, yeah.
Yeah. So it turns out that there's, you know, I'm a pretty crunchy granola eating Tesla driver, and I was concerned about this, but I went and I looked it up, and they were talking about the now what happens to those people if they don't have if there is no call center. That's a different question in their jobs, but there was about the CO2 emissions for a average size call center, which was about 120 people or something that they used, was about 1 million tons of CO2 per year. A call center built on top of a 1 billion parameter model that could handle all of it, plus the energy for it, was about 28,000 tons. So a massively reduced number.
Is that factoring in the actual training as well? The training
that is factoring in the training, which is around 23,000 tons. So basically, it's pretty similar to you got to pay for 1 year's worth of your CO2 to train the thing, and then your operating costs of CO2 are about the same every single year. So the machine is significantly better for the environment than we are as well.
Mm.
Excellent. Next question that comes in is what's better and more reliable for content creation in your all opinions, OpenDevin AI or ChatGPT?
I mean, I don't think OpenDevin's that great.
Yeah, I agree. I think for content creation, ChatGPT is at the top at the moment, and you know, we spent a lot of time talking about how everything you put into the model goes to God knows where and is liable to be, you know, exposed. But there's a lot of work being done on private models, and the private models are very interesting as well. They are not quite where they aren't even close, in my opinion, to ChatGPT 4.0. So that's why if you're looking to dip your toe, just go get that account. Try it out, and if you're not blown away, then
or if you're a Microsoft user, just use Copilot because it's running on ChatGPT 4 anyway.
Right.
So another question came in regarding, so all that's being said, we were tied closely to a full stack development team for proprietary softwares. Is that a thing of the past with those tools? I'll let the IT folks answer that one.
Well, Greg, you've got the full stack development team.
So look, right now there's about 1 million tools out there to like help you replace your developers, and we play with every single one of them. None of them will replace a human being right now. That said, I think the future looks like what you'll have is somebody who's like an architect who has a number of agents that are working for them, these AI agents that will produce smaller blocks of code, and the human architect will help assemble them in the right way. So while I don't think that all of our jobs are going to disappear overnight, there's going to be a reduction in the number of especially junior developers that work with us. And the problem that I have with that is, how do you train the next generation
Future,
of senior engineers and architects to be able to use these tools and to make sure that they're all working correctly? So that's where my concern is in that area.
I would just like to say, as a passenger, that if you're using the AI without inspection and oversight from skilled programmers to write code, I do not want to sail with you because yeah, for obvious reasons. No.
Excellent. All right.
Look, despite my comments about car salespeople and first-year legal associates, it's highly skilled people are not going to lose their jobs to AI anytime soon, especially in critical components.
Yeah, but Greg raises a really important point, that what about the future? Where do the future skilled people come from? Because
100%.
they've had to go through the years of hard graft of doing the junior stuff, which now is going to be replaced by AI.
We'll teach them using AI. Yeah, that's good.
So another question that came in that I think is a good one. First of all, a big shout out to all the panelists. They say thank you to the panelists. AI will probably become a norm, used by most, if not all, cruise companies. With that said, can we say that the competitive edge of using AI will diminish as we move forward in time?
Yes.
Yes, but it's kind of mandatory. That assumes that you're in the system and you're paying attention. I think without it, you're going to fall behind. I think the real competitive advantage going forward is going to be customization, prompt engineering, as was mentioned, guardrail development, and homegrown, special purpose AI engines that don't necessarily rely on the same engine everybody else is using.
This is the same edge as when the internet came about. Like, all pre-internet companies had to wrestle with, what am I going to do? When do I enter? And is it okay for my employees to surf the internet? I mean, all of that was definitely happening. And now it's like, you got a company, it's not on the internet, that doesn't really exist. So it will be the same way. But I agree. There's going to be lots of jockeying for position. There's going to be lots of, is it going to be beta or VHS tapes that win the day? There's a lot of that's going on right now.
Excellent. Well, as we get to the top of the hour, we've put up some AI resources to play with on this list. Also in the chat webinar window, there was an acknowledgement of iwander.io. I don't know if any of the team on the panelists have done any work or seen that program before. But we thank everyone for tuning in. It has been great to be part of this conversation. A special thanks to Frank, Ian, Brent, and Greg for your insight and your knowledge on this. Thanks to Sourcetoad for hosting this event. And of course, if you have any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat window or the Q&A, and we will compile that information and keep those for future webinars. Thank you again, gentlemen, for a wonderful conversation, and everyone have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you all. Thanks all. Bye.